unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live, Boxingego unpack. Yeah. We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live.
Bad news. Jermell Charlo gets stopped by Canelo Alvarez. Payday. You want payday? I know that, says Eddie Hearn. That's what I want to talk about in this video. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. So Eddie Hearn seems to think that Canelo Alvarez will stop Jermell Charlo. He says, quote, everything I'm hearing from Saul in the buildup to this fight, he's going to be too big and too strong for Jermell Charlo, to be honest with you. But Charlo's a very good fighter. Canelo Alvarez will stop him actually late in the fight. I guess he has a little bit more to prove. When you look at his last three performances, Bivol, Gennady Golovkin, hello guys, and Ryder. But don't forget he had wrist surgery. I'm sure he had a few other issues with his knee and stuff like that. So I think you're going to get a motivated Canelo in this fight, and I expect him to be triumphant. I think so. If Canelo is not where he was 4 or 5 years ago, I think Charlo is a live dog in the fight for sure. But I just feel Canelo will be motivated for this fight, and I expect and I hope he can be victorious. He continues by saying, that's always a possibility, but I think when you come through injuries and stuff like that, you've got to expect, and this was regarding Canelo and John Ryder. He said the last fight against John Ryder was off the back of wrist surgery, so I don't think that was a bad performance. I think we will get to learn everything we need to know on September 30th, but like I said, I expect him to win, end quote. Now, my thing is this. I feel like when old media tries to protect a fighter and they're basically rooting for a fighter to win, they usually put more pressure on the fighter to the point where it's non-beneficial to that fighter because you put a bullseye on their back. That's exactly what Eddie Hearn is doing. He and Canelo seemingly had this bromance when Canelo Alvarez was over there with DAZN, and despite negative things he said about Canelo being a drug cheat in the past, Eddie Hearn completely forgot about these things when Canelo was working for him. He also seems to have an anti-PBC and Al Heyman agenda, constantly talking about their programming instead of his own. What's happening on DAZN? What fights are you doing? What's up with Rematch Room USA? He's always talking about, oh, I heard Showtime is, going to be out of business and they're going to pull out of the boxing business and these things. So I just think they're putting more pressure, per usual, on old media and old media fighters like Canelo Alvarez, right? The fighters they really and truly want to win, it's almost like their predictions are wishful thinking. I hope he can do this. I hope Canelo is still up to par, because it was all over the place. If you listen to what he said, he says Canelo by knockout, but then he also is saying that all of his last performances deserve an excuse because of injuries. And then he said, if Canelo isn't who he was 4 or 5 years ago, then, Charlo is a live dog. So I feel like those are almost 3 different stances all in one, So let's just say September 30th will be an interesting day. I think the pressure is on Canelo Alvarez because Canelo Alvarez, most people, including myself, wanted to see Canelo Alvarez face off and square off against David Benavidez. He didn't do that. What did he do? He instead chose a guy 14 pounds lighter than him, says he's doing it because he respects him, and Canelo tries to pit Jermell against his brother, like, oh, I respect him, he has the better resume of the two, this, that, and the third, and say, oh, it's undisputed versus undisputed. But literally, after they call the fight and announce the fighters, Jermell Charlo is going to be stripped, so he's really not going to be undisputed anymore. But that's a whole nother story, and I've talked about that in previous videos. So Canelo clearly could have fought somebody who has experience at the weight, like David Morrell Jr., his mandatory, or that's right, David Benavidez, his other mandatory. But he chose somebody in a lighter division. So I don't think the confidence is truly there from Canelo and his team. That's why he's picking a guy and moving him up. I mean, just imagine if Floyd Mayweather was at 147, despite Floyd Mayweather having brittle hands and hand injuries and stuff like that. Imagine him late in his career being older than Canelo, and he wasn't doing this. He wasn't fighting down. He wasn't fighting somebody from lightweight, moving him up 2 weight classes and calling it his pay-per-view. If anything, he was 36, 37, fighting the likes of bigger guys like Canelo Alvarez. He was fighting someone who was physically bigger than him, who outweighed him on the fight night. Floyd Mayweather, in his pro fights, he really didn't exceed like 151 pounds. He would come in at like 148. Even if he was fighting at 154, he wasn't coming in super heavy. Versus guys like Canelo Alvarez, albeit he was young, he was coming in heavy. And he was like 165, maybe 165 plus. So he was way bigger than Floyd Mayweather, way younger than Floyd Mayweather, and yet he still got whooped by Floyd Mayweather. Then you have Canelo, and you got people like Eddie Hearn is doing all this wishful thinking, like, oh, he's gonna stop him, I believe, and coming up with all these excuses for why Canelo Alvarez performed in his last 3 fights like he did. And again, it just sounds like a bunch of wishful thinking. Your prediction is basically, Eddie Hearn's prediction is basically what you're hoping to happen, what you want to happen. And we'll see. Jermell Charlo looks focused. He's moving up in weight. And it's funny with the Canelo excuses, because when other fighters lose and then they say X, Y, and Z, people don't want to hear it. They're like, no, that's just an excuse. All you do is make excuses. Just take your L. But then when Canelo Alvarez loses to Dimitri Bivol, or performs poorly, or at least in the public eye, in the public perception, fights like Triple G, all things considered, Triple G, 41 years old, people thought he should have performed and looked a bit different. Fights, his last fight with John Ryder, he has his built-in excuse. Oh, he had injuries and his hand and wrist surgery and his knee. That's what Eddie Hearn literally just said. So it's why does Canelo have all these excuses? And why is this passable for Canelo Alvarez, but no one else can say anything when they lose or have a suspect performance? It's really weird. And then you look at, let's say, Canelo versus John Ryder, primarily out of his last 3 fights, that was the most obvious, like, quote unquote, cherry pick or gimme fight. A guy who's never fought really consistently higher than domestic level, and fought really all his fights in the UK, things like that. And Canelo fought him in Mexico, where he's from, had the hometown, home court advantage, and you still perform poorly despite him having a broken nose. So I understand why people are saying Canelo is washed, or there's signs of slippage and things like that, because that's what his performances have showed. Like he looks like John Ryder looks like a guy that previously he would have stopped. He was stopping guys like Liam Smith, guys like Rocky Fielding, guys like Caleb Smith didn't get stopped, but he beat him up. You know what I mean? He stopped Caleb Plant, but then John Ryder goes the distance with you. I don't know. So something looks off. People have their built-in excuses and reasons as to why, but all in all, Canelo is not looking the same. And, Charlo definitely is a live dog. Let me know what you guys think. Will Charlo get stopped? Again, to me, I think the pressure's on Canelo Alvarez to perform here, because Charlo, the expectation is he's going to get stopped. He's smaller. So it only really works one way. He can only fight up and fight better than the anticipation. Do you see what I'm saying? Like basically there's the expectations are so low for Jermell Charlo that him doing anything would be of benefit or viewed as positive because the expectations are so low. But Canelo's considered the face of boxing. He's the guy with the experience at the weight. People are saying he's the stronger of the two. So that's why fights like this are extremely dangerous, and you have to be cautious because at the end of the day, it could come back to bite you, where you have a guy and he's like teeing off or he hurts you or anything. It's gonna look 5 to 10 times worse for you, because if you fought a Benavidez, a Morrell, or Andrade, and they're of the weight class, it's at least expected because it's like, okay, this guy has some experience up here. But if you fought a guy who did like a once and done and then he hurts you or beats you, you know, that's going to be harder for Canelo to come back from. We'll see how it all plays out September 30th. Drop your thoughts in the comment section. Best in the business, and I'm out.
Introducing Super Thanks, right here on the official Boxingego YouTube. Super Thanks allows you, the viewers, to show a little bit of extra gratitude, which enables me as a full-time content creator to push out the content you need in the world of boxing. Underneath all the videos, you will see a heart with the $sign in it. You can enter any amount that you find suitable as a super thanks. A brand new, interactive, and colorful way to get your comments highlighted and noticed by not only myself, but other people on the YouTube platform. Super thanks, a unique and cool way to show and applaud us full-time content creators. Hopefully you guys enjoy the content. Super thanks.
The future is now. The Hibernation 5s by Kenichi Bear. Hybrid gaming and lifestyle headphones. Out of the box, you can connect to any console or PC. Bluetooth ready with a low latency USB adapter, color RGB, and extreme bass mode. The Hibernation 5s adjust to you. Whether you need a gaming, travel, gym, or lifestyle headphones, the Hibernations got you covered. The new Hibernation 5s, link in the description. Customize the way you hear the world. Welcome to the nation. Are you tired of your YouTube videos not getting any views? Well, consider TubeBuddy. I've used TubeBuddy for years to scale up my YouTube channel. Now we're sitting over 200,000 subscribers. TubeBuddy is a browser extension that offers a ton of built-in productivity and time-saving services to take your channel to the next level. Use my link in the description to get started with TubeBuddy and level up your channel faster. We work it.